Hi, I'm James Brookes, and welcome to From the Factory Floor, a conversational podcast about all things startup and tech, brought to you by the folks at Thestartupfactory.tech. So, welcome back to From the Factory Floor. As ever, I'm your host James, and I'm on my own today. I think the rest of the TSF team has abandoned me. But regardless of that, I'm very excited to introduce Daniel and David from one of our new startups. How you doing, guys?
Very well.
Good, thanks.
So today's all about you guys, to be honest, rather than me talking. So obviously we've been chatting a little bit about your startup journey and your startup VoxANN, which I've really enjoyed, especially someone who does podcasts and deals with the audio a bit. So do you guys want to literally go for a start for 10? Tell me a little bit about VoxANN and what you guys are doing.
Sure thing. So just for everyone out there listening, I'm Dave. So VoxANN is a concept that Daniel and I have come up with over the period of a couple of years, really. We currently, on our day-to-day, we run a small company called Nuntier Media. We work in multilingual announcement content. And we realized that actually handling the production of that had a wider ranging applications for a whole host of other markets. And that kind of just focusing just on Nuntier was missing out on a kind of a bigger picture that served much greater needs than just our kind of specific industry, which is very niche. And so we started branching that out and looking at automating and digitizing the entire end-to-end production process of creating multilingual announcements, and actually that flexibility that comes with needing to constantly change and iterate text and audio-based speech. Do you want to kind of add on that, Dan?
Yeah, so the journey that kind of led us along this path during Nuntier, it was very specific to the area that we operate in now. As we kind of looked at where it could be applied in other markets, we kind of realized that a lot of the complexity that we were kind of building into the platform didn't apply to the wider market. And I think at this point, we sort of either saw a really harsh fork in the road, or kind of almost like a 90-degree pivot, or we would start a new project or a new product that wouldn't be tied to Nuntier specifically. And that's kind of where VoxANN was born. So VoxANN essentially is a localization platform. So we deal with translation, voiceover recording, audio processing, and file hosting and delivery. The general concept is that if you have existing content or you're making content, it may be in English, it may be in another language, and you want that to be translated and localized in other languages in text and speech, you would upload or input your content. You would select the languages that you require. You would select the voices for each of those languages, and you would then receive a localized version, so like a translated version in both text and speech. And the content delivered, it comes synchronized against the original content, so along a timeline or a sequence, and the text is also lined up with the speech as well. We have a segmentation process that kind of runs in the back end of this that kind of simplifies the production. And it means if you need to make any changes, you might want to remove a paragraph, or you may want to remove a word and change that. That can be done on one pivot language, and changes will be reflected across all of the languages. So it really cuts down on the complexity and time spent working across all these languages.
Yeah, because I can imagine, because I enjoy travelling and spend more time in planes than I'd like to think about, to be honest. When you hear the amount of announcements actually on a flight, as much as whether people should ignore them, don't do that. It's bad behaviour ignoring the safety announcements, even if you've been on a million flights. How many there actually are and how different they are. It must be a lot of work to actually produce these as it stands, because you've got welcome on board this, whatever the flight is from here to there. Because at the moment, I assume that has to be almost recorded in its entirety from end to end, and then done for every, almost verging on every flight and every destination and origin.
Yeah, you've got to record every language individually. You've got to be present in the recording sessions. There's a lot of approvals back and forth. The problem is when you get to any changes. So if you kind of have a script error in the original script, or if you just want to revise scripts, and then it's a very long, arduous process. You've got to get the voice actor back in. You've got to go through the translation process prior to that as well. So you've got to run through the whole process again. It's very pricey and very lengthy. And so going back to what we're saying, that is where kind of VoxANN started on, okay, how can we reduce the time that this production process takes and reduce the cost and the effort, and actually put the control back in the hands of the content creator, those people who are actually wanting to generate text and speech-based content for their products, whether that's aviation, marketing, whether that's advertising, or kind of education and e-learning.
Yeah, I was really going to my next point, that as much as I know you guys have got that expertise in aerospace from what you've done previously and what's brought you from where you were previously to Nuntier to VoxANN, that actually how many places actually have automated announcements? Like, you look at arenas and concert events, you look at different modes of transport, you look at some things. I think that's one of the reasons why when we started talking, I think we got so excited, is that you have your niche and you're great at what you do, but the implications, like you said, the wider ranging applications of this could be absolutely huge, couldn't they?
Yeah, audio is such a powerful tool, and it's one of those areas. It's an area of media that's very passive, and we take it in kind of almost subconsciously. You know, with visual media, you've kind of got to focus. It takes a little while to process the images, but with audio, yeah, it's constantly coming in, and you're taking note of it, and you're identifying it with it almost on a subconscious level, and it provides what we think of it as providing a level of inclusivity and kind of, bringing people into your brand, into your message. And if you can do that in a multilingual sense, then you've just opened up a huge range of opportunities for you and your kind of connections with customers, clients, potential connections.
It's that global brand aspect, isn't it? Because you look at almost the faces, and you recognise them, but actually the voices with these things, it allows almost a standardization, I guess is kind of the word, to be able to give that consistency, especially something like an airline, which is going to be something which is global just by the pure nature of what it does. And that consistency of brand, which is something that's so important these days, VoxANN can really help them, can't it, in terms of being able to create that local friendly, assuming they want a friendly voice for these sort of things, rather than someone who's angry, which I know something there, which is another really exciting aspect of this, is how different technologies can really help this as well going forward.
Going back to the reach to other markets, it's interesting that we've come from such an uber niche space, like pre-recorded announcements, and as we've just been talking about, announcements in general in public spaces, wherever they may be. It could be still within transport, it could be any public spaces, music festivals, etc. But we've found, as we've been looking at use cases, generally any content that is in audio, there could be applications for it within VoxANN. It still requires a very similar production process, asset or media management systems, and variety of different encoding and loudness standards, etc. So we're seeing quite a wide application. Some of the early stage discussions that we've been having actually within education. So e-learning platforms, there's one thing Britain is actually very good at is our education system. There's not a super long list at the moment, I'd say, but yeah. Yeah. But we're still very good at that, and it's a big export. I wasn't really aware of it until we kind of got into these conversations with an educator, and the e-learning, online learning, and platforms from English schools. It's not a terribly busy space. We know it's got traction. We know this is how we generally, a lot of people in the UK and Europe do prefer to learn, but the wider world, there's still a lot of growth. And it's a really exciting place, I think, where we want to exercise some of the benefits of VoxANN.
And even when, because obviously this is all audio content. I mean, for anyone who's listening to this is audio content. And even if you can offer a tool, I think we have discussed like much further in the future, even stuff like podcasts and being able, because we've had such an explosion in those recently in terms of people creating them, especially when COVID was a thing, people started doing more audio, more podcasts because they have the time, people got the setup. Being able to produce something like this, put it into other languages, suddenly gives just an average people who might not be the best editors like myself, the ability to actually have multilingual content to be able to just reach wider audiences, which has then got implications for people might start want to monetize the podcast, which is something they might then be able to do, where previously it's just something they've not had any access to or any ability to do, especially at sort of timescales and costs which are reasonable.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we kind of, one thing on our roadmap is for people to be able to upload their audio. It could be a podcast or a video. It would be transcribed. That would be proofread. You would get that translated. And realistically, we really want to see the adoption of AI voices. So when there are content creators that aren't looking, to spend £1,000 on a few hours of professional voiceover artist across 10 languages, the cost is crazy. But if you can have that, produced with an AI voice in a tone that's suitable to the type of content that you're making, I mean, that's really a huge part of the vision. A lot of the features and workflows that Dave and I have been working on actually were tied to AI voices. That was the goal. The more we look at it, and we're starting, I think, this year to see a soft nig with people's perception of AI technology. And I think we really respect high quality audio, excellent professional human style voice, and that's why we prefer to work with human voices for what we do now. But I think people's expectations of AI voices are quite accommodating at the moment. And even if it does sound a little robotic and the odd word is wrong, they're okay with that as long as they understand the message. So I think we're going to start seeing an adoption for this, and it would be fantastic if VoxANN is able to cater to it, in the next 18 months.
No, I think, like you say, the growth of AI is really something that's going to be huge for you guys and huge generally, because you might get to a stage where someone goes on ChatGTP, write me a script for in this voice doing this. That produces their script. Get the AI voices to read it. Get you guys then to transcribe it.
I did a test the other day.
Oh, did you?
I asked it. I actually asked Google Bard to write a. I don't know if that'll get you. Probably. I asked Google Bard to write some aircraft in-flight announcements just as a test, and it was totally on the money. I mean, there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. I don't know where it pulled its info from, but I would give it 100% top marks.
Wow, that's really impressive, because I've only done very small tests with it, because obviously, especially in terms of like producing content, you can write me a blog around insert topic here just to see how it produces it and how accurate it gets, because I've heard some complaints that, especially longer form, it can go a bit squiffy at the end, I think is probably the way of putting it. But I think when you're looking at something like you guys are doing in terms of announcements, something like that to help people either producing that script and then send to you guys to get segmented, translated, recorded, and it can be really incredible quite what AI can manage. And obviously that's just where it is at the moment. I think that's one of the things that really excited sort of TSF and me when we started talking, is this is something which is verging on bleeding edge tech, isn't it, in terms of AI being right on the money, despite Mr. Musk asking people to stop using AI. He's scared of it while he's trying to ruin Twitter. But how do you see VoxANN in terms of its like the technology and where it's at in comparison to like the rest of the market and what they're doing?
So I think with VoxANN, there's nothing that we've come across that provides this end-to-end complete service. And nothing that provides that flexibility. And what we're trying to do with VoxANN is stay, as you said, leading edge. But we're not reinventing the wheel in terms of individual technologies, but we're looking at combining the best technologies and being able to be in a position where we can consistently adapt and bringing new tech that if this, as we spoke about before on other conversations, if there's AI voices or an AI platform that produces more realistic performances, then we can kind of plug that in and bring that in. I think where we will stand head and shoulders above the rest is in terms of what Dan's mentioned before, is in our segmentation process and how we actually break down scripts, how we break down text, and how we assign sentiment and meaning to words, phrases, blocks within that text, and how we then interact with the multilingual translations and hence provide performance directives to both voice actors in the initial runs, but also AI voices as we develop on that.
Yeah. One thing to add with that in mind, adding this direction and any changes that you want to make to a said language. Our platform, you make it on one language, the change, and that's carried across. It could be 10 languages, it could be 20, it could be 50, but you only need to make that action on one language. And from an audio producer's perspective, people who work with multiple languages, that's like 10 hours of work, down to less than one. So it's a real benefit to have that kind of scalable workflow, as we kind of word it.
Yeah, because you think about the amount of time that goes into this, and that's really the benefit of what you guys are doing, in that you can streamline that end-to-end process. And if people still want that human voice, you're never going to get rid of people wanting that. Like I say, people are more cost sensitive, or maybe it's something not really thought about. Utilizing technology there gives you people the option of either here's a person that warm fuzzy feeling of trying to actually using people, versus actually it's just kind of cool that I've got an AI voice who's currently, and I guess the AI voices, especially as they improve, will be that more consistent option. They're always available. They'll always do what you want. There's no lead time between the AI voice providing it, and you don't have to get someone into a recording studio at the end of the day. And I think that is incredibly exciting, and it's it could potentially change how even something as small as, I don't think anyone would have really paid attention to the in-flight audio and the outside of watching a movie on a plane. But
sorry, go ahead.
It's something that I think people listening to this might actually notice more and go, there is actually quite a lot of announcements on this. And then think about the next flight, you go, wait, this is the same announcement but slightly different. You realise quite how much effort goes into just something that's really quite small.
Yeah. Getting into what Nuntier does, as I say, VoxANN, it'll be its own business. It headed in a different direction, but the benefits with that Nuntier will get from it are really big. That using AI voices or human recordings, but with a dynamic system, where you can change the destination. You can possibly even include a passenger's name. You can potentially have the announcements sent directly to your seatback that are specific for you. So it could be a dietary requirement that you've requested on flight. It could be a notification that your connecting flight, you'll be late for it and you won't be able to make it, and that the airport, or the airline is making accommodation reservations for you. Or it could be that they've left your baggage at the airport, and
no one wants that announcement.
Yeah,
no one wants that.
Yeah, and but having that direct to your seatback, or if you've got the airline's application, the mobile app, to get that info without having to go over the PA or someone have to come over and tap you on the shoulder while they're busy doing something else up and down the aisle. There's a massive benefit to that. And I think that the level of personalization that you'd get from that as well would be help with client customer retention and just that overall passenger experience.
Yeah, personalization is a huge thing. If we can nail that down in terms of people being able to use that, like I say, whether it's seat backs, whether it's apps, or whatever it is that the brands are going to use, that's a huge step forward in terms of trying to generate that brand loyalty, like you say. I'm just very conscious of the time because I know you guys are incredibly busy. Just in terms of where you're at your journey now, obviously you're going great guns with Nuntier, you're starting VoxANN. Well, what's next for you guys?
So next for us is building out VoxANN's MVP. So that's kind of our key focus over the next 6 to 9 months. And alongside that, we're building out an executive team as well for VoxANN. We're very aware that we have our limitations. We come back from an audio production background. We know audio engineering well. We're building out a team to focus on the linguistics side, the AI expertise, and the tech side as well, along with a few other business focuses as well. So we'll be building out our executive team, getting people on board who can really help us drive VoxANN forward, starting building the MVP and looking to reach out and raise funding to do so.
Amazing. Well, fingers crossed we can help in that anywhere we can. And if anyone listening wants to get in touch with you guys, what's the best way for them to actually get in touch with you, Dave and Dan?
They can reach us via Nuntiere, so it's info@nuntieremedia.co.uk. Nuntiere is spelled Nuntiare. Alternatively, you can hit us up on LinkedIn if you want to message us directly. So David Bilsborough, Dan Bottomley, is it Dan or Daniel? Dan Bottomley on LinkedIn, yeah. So they can hit us up on LinkedIn or get us via email on Nuntiere.
Amazing. And I'll put the links below just so if anyone wants to have a look at Nuntiere and what you guys are doing, or equally those links to try and hit you guys up and help you along on your journey. But no, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining and for giving up some of your time in this when I know you're busy producing audio. And please, like I said, don't criticise the edit of this too much. And thank you to everyone who listened, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I think that just about wraps things up here. If you have any thoughts or questions on anything we said today, get in touch, whether that be through our Twitter @RealTSF or email at hello@StartupFactory.tech, or feel free to drop in for a coffee and a chat. As ever, thanks for listening.